So let's jump straight in. And for entree, we had Fantasy Super Rugby 2.0 round one. The buys were the Blues and the Force. And in our first game, we had the Reds and the Tars. Harry, take it away.
No, I think I'll take this one away.
Oh,
I was just loved this game to bits. The Reds took this one out 32-26. It was actually 4 tries to 2 in this one. In the returns column, we had Brendan Paenga-Mosa. He missed most, or didn't get much of game time at the start of the season. He returned after an ankle injury. Hunter Paisami, he returned after his MCL injury. Ned Hannigan after his ongoing concussion issues. The new injuries, we had Angus Blythe go down pretty early with a concussion. I think it was a head knock. And Hunter Paisami, he had an ankle injury.
Which we saw in the photo post-game. So nothing's been announced, right?
He could have just been icing his ankle, mate. Okay, it didn't mean he's injured.
He was icing it after the match, and obviously that scares all of us because we love him.
True.
Look, this is awesome. The Battle of the Border is back. The passion, the niggle, the aggression, everything was in this game for me. It was like we were watching Phil Wall versus David Croft back in the day. It was just something that had been missing so long in this derby. And the fact that the Reds actually got this done for the first time since 2013 was really good. And the youngsters, I mean, looked at the red young players after the match, and they were just elated. They were over the moon with the win. So you could see that there was a lot of desire to win there from the young guys. But one of the most exciting things for me were some of these big hits. Lockie Swinton put on a bunch of them. He must have been listening to our podcast when we said he needed to do something. And he absolutely pumped Taniela Tupou, who was 135 kgs, and he just pumped him. And then he let him know it as well, stood over him and just yelled abuse at him and just told him how much he smashed him.
That's what I love the most was the lip that everyone was, so the chat that was being thrown out.
Yeah, it was so good. One slightly disappointing thing from a Tars fan, Angus Bell looked so solid in the scrum early on in the year, and something was missing in this one. He really got shown up by Taniela Tupou. There was 4 penalties quite early against Bell in the scrum, leading to a yellow card. Tupou didn't want to be shown up though, so he decided to get his own yellow card and did 2 late hits on the kickers, which saw him
both times.
Yeah, I think so. But
it's just hard to slow down as a big man, all right? When you get ahead of steam up, all right?
If individually they weren't so bad, but together they were retarded.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, the skill execution, this one, I saw a few people sort of saying they didn't think it was that interesting game. The aggression was there, but the skill execution was, there was great teams linking up, the players linking up, great counter attack. There was some really slick set piece moves as well, like the one that set up the Maddox try, Swinton throwing the ball inside, and Maddox looked really, really solid in this match, not only through that, but he was slotting in at 10, a bit like that Veal role as well. But this game, yeah, awesome game. If you haven't watched it, go back and watch it. In terms of match stats, the Reds had 59% of the possession and 42% of the territory, yet the Tars had 472 to 402 run meters. So they were just running that ball non-stop when they got the chance. The Tars made 11 to 5 line breaks, 9 to 1 offloads. They were really throwing that ball around and having some enterprising play. Turnovers, the Reds took this one 8-2, with Fraser McWright in his starting debut getting 4 to himself, which is freakishly good.
Yeah, how could you say?
Oh, freakishly good.
Showing up the Wallabies captain.
That's it.
Reds line out was pretty poor, 74% with 14 from 19, where the Tars was 91% with 10 from 11, which is something you hope for with a guy that only offers lineouts in Simmons. Penalties went 9 to the Reds, 18 to the Tars, which really sort of made this game, I think, got it out of their reach with just those penalties. Fantasy man of the match was Jack Maddox with 73 points. He had 15 runs for 139 run meters. He bagged himself that try, 3 line breaks, 2 tackle busts, 2 offloads, and he had a brilliant try saver off a McDermott line break as well, which was really good to see. Tate McDermott himself got 61 points with a quick sneaky quick tap try. Harry Wilson got 57 points, and Will Harrison, he had a pretty brilliant game with his kicking and all around the paddock with 58 points.
Yeah, how good was that Tate try where he kind of just calmly walked in as if he wasn't doing anything and then just quick tap and went? It was fantastic.
Yeah, love to see from a halfback.
Yeah, no, very good.
But there was a lot of exciting youngsters in this game, I've got to say. So many good players to watch. Very exciting.
Yeah.
You're right. And I think, Nelson, you covered it with saying how much it meant to everyone. It looked like a grand final celebration.
Yeah, it's so good. It was awesome.
All right, Harry, do you want to take us to the next game?
Yes, absolutely. So the Highlanders playing under the roof against the Crusaders. Highlanders obviously having a couple of tough losses, or a tough loss already last week against the Blues, I think it was. So very good opportunity for them to kind of come back into this one, but not to be. They went down 20-40 to the Crusaders. Two tries to 5. The Crusaders leading the way. You had Tom Christie coming back into this game, but there was never any announcement about what injury he had or if he was just being rotated or whatever it was. But he played extremely well, scored a couple of tries himself. Probably not the huge tackle stats that we're used to seeing from him, but otherwise, very, very solid and finished very well twice in the left-hand corner. Josh Dixon had a new injury in this one, looked to have a very serious ankle injury. I think they stretched him off in the game as well. And on top of that, David Avili came off with limping off with an ankle injury just to add to his bad run of luck. And Ethan Blackadder as well never took the field. They subbed him pre-game for Sione Havili, but we don't know exactly why that was.
You can never have enough Havilis on the field.
No, and having said that, Sione Havili I thought was really, really good.
Yeah, so did I.
as well. This one really interesting. A game of two halves. The first half was really, really tightly fought. I thought the Highlanders were outstanding in controlling the Crusaders. Their energy and their line defense, their scramble defense was excellent. Aaron Smith looked like a genius at a couple of different points. But not to be outdone, I think Will Jordan was clearly just the human highlights reel in this one. Ridiculous that you could probably make a 5-minute video of his runs and his impact in a game from this performance alone. He scored a couple of tries himself, set up countless others, just constantly broke the line. He's just going from strength to strength. And I think it was all topped off with that icing on the cake chip and chase at the end of the game where it kind of fell back into his hands and he just accelerated away from the pack. Just completely ridiculous, his skill set and his form at the moment.
He just does not want to be benched.
No,
he does not want to be benched.
And David Havili obviously knows that he's in for a real fight because I thought Havili was excellent as well. The main difference in this one this week, though, was that David Havili was not able to finish his tries a lot of the time. It looked like the last hurdle, he could have probably set up a couple of tries himself, but kind of threw a couple of passes to ground or ended up holding on to it a little bit too long as well. So that's probably the biggest difference between those two guys in this game. Shannon Frizell, another big talking point in this game. I think we were obviously really worried about him not being in form, but he scored a try that he just had absolutely no right to score. Busted off a tackle and then ran through 3 men to score it and then made another 19 tackles himself as well. So huge work rate from him and good to see him playing well 2 games in a row. And then the final one for me, 53 minutes in, the Highlanders were down a little bit and Merrick had a 3-on-1. All he had to do was pass the ball. Instead he held it, got hit by Richie Mwanga, turned the ball over, and it should have been 7 points. Ended up
it was terrible.
On a 3-point penalty, but I think that was a pretty pivotal moment. It was the only points they scored in the whole second half. So, huge moment in the game. Crusaders, absolutely dominant in the match stats. They had 64% possession, 67% territory, 535 run meters to 304. They had 42 tackle busts to 25, 17 line breaks, 17 offloads, just insane. One thing that stood out to me in this one as well was the tackle success for both teams. The Highlanders 76% and the Crusaders 75%. Pretty average on both sides of the ledger there, which you don't see very often from the Crusaders or the Highlanders, to be honest.
That was probably all Shannon Frizell's runs, though.
That's
the Crusaders.
Yeah.
And missed tackles.
And he missed 5 as well, on top of his 19 that he made. Fantasy man of the match, no surprise, Will Jordan, 94 points. I said he had his 2 tries. He also had 127 metres from his 14 runs, 10 tackle busts himself, 4 line breaks, and a couple of offloads as well. Shannon Frizell, highest for the Highlanders, 66 points on the back of that try. And the Crusaders, you also had Richie Moe on 68 points. Deserved more considering his try-saving tackle, I think. Vetu Douglas, 61 points. Good to see him finally showing the form that we knew he had this second form of the season. Jack Goodhue, 52 points, 16 runs, just as we started to think if maybe he was the non-performer in the outrageous team.
Yeah.
And Lester Fingaranuku as well, 50 points himself. So,
how good did he look as well? He's going to be hard to leave out.
They're all insane.
It's spoiled the Crusaders.
Send them to Australia.
Very good. All right, well, back to the Aussie game. So following that, we had the Brumbies taking on the Rebels in Canberra. The Rebels had got out about a week earlier with the coronavirus outbreak in Victoria, closing down borders and making it very hard for teams. So it was a close game, actually. A lot of surprising things in this one, but the Brumbies ended up taking it out 31-23, so not quite the whitewash we were expecting. But they did end up with 5 tries to 2 on the ledger. Returning in this one, we had no one returning in this one. It was round 1 for the Super Rugby AU. But injuries, we had Falaufa Inga looked like he broke his nose. He took quite a significant front-on head knock. I think it was friendly fire to Tom Cusack, but blood streaming down quite a while after the game, still had it covered with towels. So we'll have to watch this space to see if he's returning. That will be eager on fantasy managers' minds. Rebels really missed Izzy Nasarani and Anaru Rangi. They're quite pivotal parts of the team, although Jordan Ulisi definitely stepped up. Finally, Prince that was promised delivered on what we've been waiting for. This was Tamua's 100th cap, and so he was cheered out by the whole of the Canberra Stadium, which was good, and he looked quite composed in his performance for the Rebels. All right, points that were interesting in this one. The Rebels scrum was just unbelievable. You wouldn't have guessed it, but they absolutely took it to the Brumbies, and it had a lot to do with the starting tight head, Tony Faumasili. There you go. Huge man who we've talked about before, who's a prop who can also play number 8. Very mobile and versatile. He did keep trying to make pilfer penalties, but he kept getting penalised for not holding his own body weight. But he was massive in the scrums and was just dismantling the Brumbies.
The bloke's an absolute beast. But it was interesting as well. The Brumbies, it was a back and forth with the forward packs. The Brumbies dominated the rolling more themselves. They were responsible for 3 tries off the back of that. Some brilliant play off the back of those scrums as well. The Rebels then gave them a dose of their own medicine. We all know that the Brumbies can score rolling more try. The Rebels did the same thing from 10 metres out, getting all their backs involved to help get it over the line. It's pretty good to see.
That's it. And the Brumbies don't get rolling maul tries scored against them. So that was pretty huge seeing that happen. Jordan Ulisi was really giving them lip for that when he dotted down for that. For this one, I think it was interesting. The Rebels are normally let down by their forward pack. It's their backs that they normally have these all-star backs. But this game, it kind of felt the other way around. Their forwards really pulled above their weight, and their backs just couldn't seem to get the ball out to Kellaway or Corey. They kind of didn't really see them feature very much in this game. Dane Halapeti eventually got it down for a try, but it was just, I don't know, the Rebels backs just couldn't quite get it together.
I think that the Brumbies had people all over the paddock that were stepping up for them, and obviously that's pretty going to be the difference in this one. Brumbies, they had Folau Fainga standing up, usual suspects, Joe Powell, Noel Alessio, but it was interesting, Mac Hansen, I think he really came into his own in that second half. He was just busting tackles at will. I think he knows there's someone pretty good, Tom Banks, waiting in the ranks to come back through after his injury, so it was pretty interesting to see.
He did. He grew in confidence in that second half, and he just attacked at will, and just I thought he was brilliant. But yeah, going into the match stats on this one, possession and territory pretty even. The meters, the Brumbies 422 to 271, so they definitely smacked them there, but not as much as they did in the tackle bus, 27 to 9, huge difference there. Line breaks 11 to 2, and offloads, the Rebels had 4 to 1. Tackle success, Brumbies 93%, Rebels 77%. That tells a lot of the story. That's why those tries got through. Penalties, a lot of penalties. We mentioned the scrums. I think, very early on, the Rebels had forced something like 6 scrum penalties. It was crazy.
Yeah.
No, just not enough in the tank. The Brumbies kind of just more composed, eventually got themselves together after a strong Rebels start. But the Rebels' usual story. Couldn't bring it back in to the end of the game. Yep. So, next one.
Fantasy man of the match, Joey Powell.
Yeah, thank you.
54 points for him. I thought he had an outstanding game. He had a try off the back of one of those rolling mauls where he took a dart himself, a try assist, an offload, a clean break, made his usual mammoth amount of passes, 67 passes, and just looked good all around the park. So really, really impressed with him. Noel Alessio was closely in behind and was the actual man of the match, I believe, at the game as well. 51 points from him, played quite well.
A few gun runs from him.
Muirhead scored 50 points on the back of that awesome first try 2 minutes into the game. One of the slickest set-piece tries I've seen from a lineup for some time. Just brilliantly played. Everything from Alan Aotearoa to holding the man back to the inside ball from Folau Fainga. Just awesome.
Yeah, dummy runner line from TK, and then brilliant inside pass from Folau, yeah.
So good. And the highest was Jordan Ulysses, 43 points for the Rebels.
Excellent. All right. Last game for the round was the Chiefs and the Hurricanes on Sunday. Chiefs did not win this one. They went down 18 to 25, 2 teams that were desperate for their first win of Super Rugby Aotearoa. Returning in this one, we had Tupo Vai from the Chiefs' young lock, returning from an illness. Solomon Alavalo returning also from some illness, and he couldn't have been keen enough to see him back on the field. Geordie Barrett's coming back from his shoulder injury that Harry Nelson had diagnosed as difficult to say when he was going to come back, but he looked fire, and he did not look like he was shying away from any contact. So he looks great. Injuries in this one, so not a very important man for the Chiefs at all, but Anton Leonard-Brown, he was pulled midweek with concussion, so that was a pretty significant loss for them. Natoya Arkoi, concussion as well in the game. He got KO'd. He got knocked the hell out.
100%.
Man, he did not know where he was. I think he did pass his concussion test post game, but
he was walking around and healthy. I don't know if he passed his test though.
Yeah, I don't think he did.
Sorry, that's right. He looked all right after the game, but he didn't pass the test to continue playing during the game. That's right. And then Fraser Armstrong, he had a knee, what looked like a knee injury. He went down a few times and then eventually couldn't carry on. And Scotty Scraft in a old mate getting the double yellows and then the red card. So it's very. Some will say it was soft. What ended up in a red card, but look, it was repeated infringements. He just was unlucky. All right, Geordie Barrett, mate, he was back. His boot is insane. Obviously, the talking point is the 60-odd metre penalty goal he took just before half-time, which he nailed. But apart from that, I mean, 12 minutes in, he attempted a drop goal from 48 metres out. It was just like, why not? I got the time and space. He sent it flying. He did miss. But,
he got the distance.
Oh, yeah, it was crazy. But otherwise, just the difference it made for territory. Like, even territory and for penalties. When he was kicking to move them downfield for a line out, mate, he was rocketing it down, 50, 60 metres into the corner.
But I reckon as a playmaker as well, he took so much pressure off Garden Basher, but basically didn't matter who was playing 10. He just
I agree.
in. He was awesome.
Yeah, no, he makes a massive difference in that team. So it's good to see him back and firing.
Yeah.
Reed Princep. Harry's like, shut up a lot of people by making 21 tackles. He's the what we call him, the B grade Vetu Douglas workman of the Hurricanes. So he gets through a lot of work. But would you pick him in your fantasy team / care about him at all? Not really.
If he's making 21 tackles, you would.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Maybe in your fantasy team, Nels. So I like to win fantasy. But look, moving on. DMAC, fantastic. Oh, yeah. How good was that cover tackle on Ben Lamb? Wow. 1-on-1, sprinting across. Took him without... I mean, Ben Lamb is not an easy man to stop. And DMAC, absolutely try-saver. Fantastic. Heaps of penalties in this one. Lots of offside penalties. So apart from the breakdown, they're really cracking down on the offside line. Just really forcing players to take that step back. They've really decided that's important. The Chiefs just unable to kind of create anything, it seemed like. We talked about DMAC running the ball a bit more. Alamalo, when he came on in the second, he certainly started getting involved. I think he took it wasn't a pick and drive, but he took a forward hit up. The minute he got on, he just wanted the ball in hand. But yeah, they just seemed... The Hurricanes' defense was fantastic throughout this game. But they just seemed unable to come up with any answers, the Chiefs. I think the telling stat for me was the amount of tackles. The Chiefs made 95 tackles in this game. The Hurricanes made 170. It's crazy. Last points from this one for me was TJ Perinara. He played 10 for the last 20 minutes. So he's kind of really slotting into that. We've mentioned that before. But
they must have lost all confidence in Fletcher Smith.
Yeah, they should have.
I know. Who did they have on the bench? I forget. They had two backs. I can't remember.
I'll check.
Very good. All right. Well, the match stats. Chiefs had 58% possession and 63% territory. It was theirs to lose. The run meters, they topped that, 517, 404. They had less tackle bust, though, 22 to 28, but plenty of tackle bust in this one. The Hurricanes also had more line breaks, 15 to the Chiefs' 11. Chiefs had more turnovers, 10 to 8. More offloads, 10 to 8. And their Achilles heel was the Chiefs conceded 16 turnovers to the Hurricanes' 8. So they conceded double the amount of turnovers. The Chiefs won 17 lineouts, and the Canes, they won 8, but they lost 4. So significant. The main thing in this was the 2 yellow cards. So it was pretty hard to win a game. Someone off the field for most of the time. The second yellow resulted in a red, but it was only in the last 10 minutes. Anyway,
they obviously still managed to pull it off, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, so huge effort from them. Fantasy stats, Lachlan Boshier, 65 points, fantasy man of the match, bagged himself a try, couple of carries, couple of line breaks, 1 tackle bust, 7 lineouts taken. So he really was, I guess, the unsuspecting lineout weapon for them. Stole a lineout as well, won a turnover, probably got penalised for another few since they're really cracking down on that, but can't remember. Ben Lamb and Cobus Van Wyk, the 2 wingers for the Hurricanes, 49 points each. Aaron Crude and Geordie Barrett, 48 points. And Artie Sevilla and TJ Perinara with 43. Artie starting to look a little bit more lively, which was good.